Hello, my name is Franklin Castillo. This is session 1 in our ASP.NET Core MVC course. In this session, we will create our first ASP.NET Core MVC application. In this lecture, we are going to begin by discussing the various characteristics of modern web applications, what they are, why is it that modern web applications need to have a high degree of throughput, they must be modular, scalable, fault tolerant, and have all these different characteristics that allow them to perform according to the demands of users and enterprises around the world. We'll discuss ASP.NET Core, which is the framework by Microsoft to design web applications. Within that, we'll discuss ASP.NET Core MVC, which is the design paradigm that sits on top of ASP.NET Core for designing web applications. MVC stands for Model View Controller, and it represents the design method for our applications. We'll discuss the difference between traditional and single page web applications. Why is it that one might be preferable to the other? And then we will conclude this presentation by building our first MVC project. As you can understand, the demands for modern web applications have never been higher. They're expected to be available at all times on any device and from any location around the world. They have to support security, they have to be scalable and flexible so that they can handle changes in demand. ASP.NET Core was created for this very purpose. It offers cloud-based hosting, it offers a modular architecture, and also built-in security. This framework also allows developers to include only the features that they require, which reduces the use of resources and improves performance in the applications. ASP.NET Core applications are optimized specifically for cloud environments. So they're lightweight and capable of high throughput, which allows more users to be served using the same hardware. ASP.NET Core applications are also cross-platform, meaning that they can run on Windows, Linux, and Mac OS, and can even be deployed using containers, which makes them well suited for things like microservices architectures. This type of modular design relies on something called NuGet packages, which helps keep applications smaller and easier to maintain. To do this, ASP.NET Core uses something called dependency injection. Dependency injection gives classes the required services that they need from the outside rather than having the classes create them. In ASP.NET Core, think of a controller that might declare that it requires some service, let's say a logger, and the framework will provide that service automatically. This reduces things like coupling, it supports easier testing, and keeps the code organized. Testability is another key characteristic of ASP.NET Core, and it includes tools like Test Server, which allows applications to be tested in memory, which is particularly useful when using application programming interfaces, otherwise known as APIs. Finally, ASP.NET Core supports both traditional server-rendered applications that use the Model View Controller paradigm, otherwise known as MVC, as well as single-page applications. It also includes Blazor, which makes it possible to run .NET code in the browser with a framework called WebAssembly. For now, if these concepts are not familiar to you, don't worry about it. Just keep in mind that these are things that you'll become acquainted with throughout the duration of the course. Just keep in mind that these are features that make ASP.NET Core a flexible framework for the development of modern web applications. As we already mentioned, ASP.NET Core is the cross-platform and open source framework created by Microsoft for building modern web applications. It is designed to support projects of any size, be it small applications or enterprise systems, and it's in fact used throughout a variety of services such as Bing, Xbox, Microsoft 365, and Azure. The framework uses a modular request pipeline, which is powered by Kestrel, and this is a high-performance web server that runs either on Windows, Linux, or Mac OS. It includes built-in dependency injection, environment-based configuration, and other login tools. ASP.NET Core also provides several technologies that extend how applications interact with users and other systems. Blazor, for example, allows developers to build interactive web user interfaces using C# instead of JavaScript, running either on the server or in the browser through the use of WebAssembly. SignalR is a library that enables real-time communication between the server and the client, and this makes it possible to update data instantly without reloading a page. gRPC is a framework for high-performance remote procedure calls, and this allows applications to communicate quickly and efficiently across networks. Security is also central and built in within ASP.NET Core, and it has support for authentication, authorization, and data protection. The framework is designed for cloud environments, which simplifies the deployment and scaling of our applications. So in summary, ASP.NET Core provides us with a unified environment for building applications that are secure, scalable, and high performance. For this course, we will also use the open source textbook, Architecting Modern Web Applications with ASP.NET Core and Microsoft Azure by Steve Smith, which will guide our study of these tools in practice. So far, you've heard me mention MVC several times, but we've really not defined what it is. ASP.NET Core MVC extends the ASP.NET Core framework by implementing what is called the Model View Controller design pattern. This pattern divides applications into three parts. First, models represent the data of the application and the operations that are performed on that data. Views are responsible for presenting information to the user, and controllers act as intermediaries which receive requests, work with the model, and return the appropriate view. The purpose of this separation is to isolate responsibilities, which makes applications easier to analyze, to test, and to modify. In this structure, the model layer maintains the state and business rules. Controllers can populate the view model classes, which are then passed to views. And views use the Razor engine to combine C# and HTML so that dynamic content can be rendered with minimal logic. The controllers direct the flow of requests, but the business logic should remain in the model to avoid any unnecessary complexity in the controller code. ASP.NET Core MVC also includes features that support common development tasks. For example, routing determines how incoming requests are matched to controller actions. Model binding converts user input into objects that controllers can then process. And model validation checks the integrity of data before it is used. Other features also extend how developers structure applications. Filters allow the code to run before or after any controller actions, which makes them useful for tasks such as authorization or error handling. Tag helpers enable server-side code to participate in generating HTML, which provides a cleaner and more consistent way to build markup in Razor views. View components are reusable units of rendering logic, which is similar to partial views, but with the ability to include their own processing. These elements, together with the MVC pattern, provides us with a structured framework for developing applications within the ASP.NET Core framework. When choosing how to build a modern web applications, you generally have three options. You have traditional server rendered applications, you have single page applications, and you have Blazor. Each will have their own strengths and trade-offs, and your decision should be based on the needs of your project and the expertise of your team. Traditional web applications will perform most of their logic on the server and then return completed HTML pages to the browser. They will work even without JavaScript and are easy for search engines to index and are simpler to build and maintain. They're well suited to applications with minimal client-side behavior such as blogs or content-driven sites. Non-developers can often edit traditional web apps more easily since much of the content is standard HTML. Single-page applications, or SPAs, on the other hand, push much of that logic onto the client. They provide a interface that is rich and interactive without full page reloads, which makes them ideal for complex applications with many features. However, SPAs require JavaScript or TypeScript expertise and rely heavily on APIs and will often involve more complex build and deployment processes. They're also a good choice when responsiveness and rich interactivity are priorities. Blazor introduces a third option. It allows teams to build interactive client applications using C# and .NET instead of JavaScript. This can be a strong choice when your team is more comfortable with .NET than with JavaScript. Blazor will support both server-side and WebAssembly execution, which offers flexibility for teams already invested in the .NET ecosystem. In this tutorial, we're going to introduce the process of creating our first ASP.NET Core MVC application. So by the end of the series, you're going to have a working application that will manage, validate, and display some data. In this case, we're going to be using some movie data for our application. Along the way, we're going to learn how to create a web application and the scaffolding for the model, which will connect to and work with a database, and also add features such as search and validation. Now, before we get started with any of that, we want to make sure that our Visual Studio Community installation is suitable for this task. So to do this, we're going to go to the web, and we're going to download our Visual Studio Setup installer. Now you can see that I already have the installer downloaded. However, if you were to need it, you can go to visualstudio.microsoft.com/vs/community and click on the download button. Once you have the file available, you can double click it, which will allow you to start the installer. So here you're going to be prompted with some sort of housekeeping for our installation. We're going to go ahead and click continue, and we'll let the application run. Once that happens, we're going to be presented with several options. You're going to go to Visual Studio Community 2012, and we're going to click the modify button. We're going to let that process, and you'll want to ensure that the ASP.NET and web development workload is selected. Since I already had it installed, I don't need to check it, but if you do not have it, you'll simply check the checkbox that is adjacent to the selection, and you will click install while downloading. Once that is done, you might be prompted to either reboot or to restart your Visual Studio Community installation, but then you'll be able to move forward. So now that this is done, I can close this out, and I can move on to open up Visual Studio Community. Okay, now that we have Visual Studio Community open, we're going to go ahead and we're going to create a new project. For our project, we are going to be using the ASP.NET Core Web App Model View Controller template. There are several ways to find it. You can scroll down. One way that I like to find it is I can just type MVC in my search box here, and you'll see that my application shows up here, or my template will show up here right away. Now in this case, we are going to be using the template that uses the C# language, and we're going to go ahead and click Next. From here, we're going to give our project a name, and in this case, we're going to call it MVC Movie. And from here, we will be clicking Next. And for this one, we're going to be using the .NET 9.0 framework, and everything else after that looks correct, and we're going to go ahead and click Create. We'll just give this a moment to start, and we're ready to move forward. So the first thing that I want to do is that I want to go ahead and run the sort of the boilerplate code that is already present in my project in this template. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click, or I'm going to use the keystroke Control F5, and what that's going to do is that it's going to invoke my browser, and it will show me a welcome screen showing me the code that is currently present in my Model View Controller project. So here we can see that we are on our welcome page and everything is working as intended. Now notice that this is running on localhost. If you don't know much about networking, just understand that localhost is simply your local machine. That is your local computer, and the server inside the Visual Studio opened up a port to 7172, and that is where our application is currently being hosted. So now that we have verified that that this sort of basic application is running, we can actually go ahead and begin modifying it. So we can close this, and the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to add a controller. So to start, we're going to be going on here in our controllers folder, and we're going to right click, then click Add, and we're going to select Controller. From here, we're just going to have an empty MVC controller, and we're going to click Add. We're going to click Add one more time, and actually let's call this, we're going to call this Hello World Controller. And we're going to have this be .cs, which is the C# extension. So we're going to click Add, and we have our blank controller class for our application. Now, before we get started, we are going to create, or rather we're going to add several elements that we'll be needing for getting our controller created. First, we're going to be adding a library, and this is going to be the system.text.encodings.web library. And what this does is that it allows us to have access to different web elements, or different web encodings. For example, HTML encoder, which encodes text so that it can be displayed in HTML. It includes the JavaScript encoder, which encodes text for JavaScript, and then also the URL encoder, which allows us to use it allows us to use it in things like URLs or query strings. So in short, it lets us use the different classes that are inside this namespace, and this is an important part in writing secure ASP.NET Core applications. So now that we have that in place, what we're going to do is that we're going to modify our index method, and we're just going to say, this is my default action. Okay, so instead of having this return the iAction result, because you can see that this the data type for the value that this method is returning does not accord with the return type of the method, we're going to have it return a string. We will then add another method to our controller, and this is going to be called welcome. So this is going to be public. It's going to return a string, and we're going to call it welcome. From here, it is going to return a string that's going to say, this is the welcome action method. Now, keep in mind that our program, what it's going to do is, once we compile it, it is going to have the sort of the root folder called Hello World. So it just removes the controller part of the Hello World controller class name, and it makes this the root folder name for our website. So this is going to be inside our Hello World folder, and then our welcome method is going to be invoked inside of our Hello World welcome folder. So our first method invokes the base URL, and then our second method specifies that this welcome URL is within our Hello World base folder or URL. So now that we have this put in place, let's run this once more, and let's see what that looks like. Okay, so we are back on our welcome page. Let's go to Hello World, and you can see that our message, which we had indicated in our Hello World controller, is visible there. Let's go to welcome, and once again that corresponds with the value that we're controlling, or that we are sending back through our method, our welcome method inside of our controller. So we've confirmed that that works, so we can go ahead and close that, and let's continue with the rest of our application. To give you an understanding of how it is that our website, our web application, directs its traffic to the Hello World controller, you should go inside of our program.cs file and take a look at the map controller route properties. So you can see here from the various arguments that we have the default route, which is the home controller will execute the index method, which is the action, and that is what allows our index method to be executed. Now, remember that whenever we open up our website, we are immediately prompted to go in here inside of our application, but recall that when we went to Hello World, we were shown our index, the content of our index method right away. And when we went to welcome, we saw the content of our welcome method. Now you might be asking yourself, how is it that welcome is inside of index, or rather inside of hello world? Why is index, why does this not require that we have index? Well, in reality, we are actually going by default to index, right? So whenever you, if you're familiar with web development, whenever you have a website called, or you have an HTML page called index.htm or HTML, that is going to be the default page that shows on your browser. The same principle will apply here, where the method that is named index, that content is what will be shown by default. So you can think of this as index, or just hello world. So implicitly, hello world, this when we go to hello world, this will implicitly have index next to it. So now that we have a better understanding of how our request gets routed onto our controller, we can begin to make modifications so that we can perhaps pass different parameters onto our website through the various URL APIs. So let's say that let's go back to our hello world controller, and what we're going to do is we're going to add two parameters that we're going to be passing to our welcome method. So the first is going to be called name, and the second is going to be an integer called num times, and by default this is going to have a value of 1. And what we're going to do here is we're going to leverage the methods that are inside of our encodings web library, and we're going to be passing that onto our welcome website. So what we'll do is we're going to start with HTML encoder, which is within the encodings web namespace, and we'll do default and encode. And keep in mind that using these various encoders are good practice for us to ensure that values are being presented securely and correctly onto our web application. So here we're going to do some string interpolation, where we're going to say hello name num times is num times. Okay, so that is going to be the value that we're going to be passing along to our welcome page. So we're going to run this again, and we're going to be back. We're back to our application. So like we said earlier, this is by default, it goes to our index method, and well, let's go to welcome. Okay, so notice that we didn't really pass any parameters to our website. However, if we do a question mark and we use name, and let's just say I'm gonna put Frank, and I'm gonna put the ampersand symbol, and then I'm gonna put num times, and I'm gonna say 5. So now that I have that, you can see that the values that I passed to my application, to my web application, were presented on the page. So you can see how we can make an interactive application where we can use the URL APIs to interact with our application. So now instead of using we're going to stop this, and instead of using num times, we're just going to say, we're going to call this ID. And we're going to say ID, and we're going to put that here in our string interpolation. So from here, let's run that again, and we'll go to welcome. Okay, so same as before. However, what we're going to do is we're just going to put 3 as the sort of the we're going to put here as the this next sort of URL element, and then we're going to put the name parameter. So you can see that we pass this element here to our ID, and then we can specify name as by parameter name and have that be reflected on our web application. And the reason that we're able to do that is because you'll recall that when we went to our programs application, remember just looking at the different segments of our router, we have the controller name followed by the action, which in this case is welcome, and then the next segment is ID. So by having our ID be listed here, it accepts this value, the ID, as this particular segment in our URL. Okay, the next thing that we're going to do is that we're going to add a view to our application. So we're going to go back and we are going to restore our index method to what we had before. We're going to have it return an iActionResult object, and then this is going to return a view. Okay, so this is looking just as we had it before. And then inside of our views folder, I'm going to right click, I'm going to click add, and then I'm going to go to view. So from here, I'm going to add a razor view empty object. Then I'm going to click add, and I'm going to call this, let's call this, yes, this is going to be index.cs.html, that's fine. And we're going to add it. Okay, perfect. So here, we are going to replace these contents with something different. So we're going to do @, and we're going to use we're going to put curly brackets, and we're going to show view data, and this element inside of our view data object is going to be called title, and it's going to hold the value of index. From here, it's going to have a header of size 2, and we're going to call this index. And then we're going to just put a small paragraph here saying hello from our view template. Okay, so let's, we're going to save this, and let's run it one more time. Then we'll go to hello world. So let's see what happened here. So we went to hello world, and it said that the index was not found. So let's see what happened. So we can see here that our view, or rather our application, was expecting our view to be inside of this hello world folder. So let's go back and remediate that. And what we're going to do is inside of our views folder, we're going to create a folder called hello world, and then we're going to move our index.cs.html file onto this folder. Okay, let's try that one more time. And let's go to hello world. Very good. So it's showing our index just as we had programmed it to. It says title, index, and then we have our header here, and then we have hello from our view template. So so far we've been successful in creating our newest view. The next thing that we're going to do is that we're going to change the views and layout pages. So we're going to go ahead and close this, and we're going to go to views, into our views folder. We're going to go to shared, and we're going to go into our underscore layout.cs HTML file. From here, we're going to modify all of the different instances of MVC movie, and we're going to replace them with movie app. Now, we don't want to change, for example, these path references. We just want to change any instance where that value is shown as text. So we'll go through and we'll change it here in the footer, and that looks to be it. Okay. We're also going to change the, let's see, we're going to go to the header, and instead of this being home, we're going to call this movies. Oh, another thing that we'll do is we're going to get rid of this ASP area property. Okay, so I think we're good to move forward. And let's execute our program. We'll go to hello world, and we can see that the movie app in the header as well as the footer was modified. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that we are able to leverage this underscore layout file because it is actually referenced inside of a file inside of a previous scope, which is this view start file, and it's referenced here, which is how we are able to bring in this layout view to all of our different web application pages. So from here, what we're going to do next is we are going to go to our index.cs HTML page, and we're going to make some modifications. We're going to call this movie list, and then we're going to call this my movie list. Okay. And this is relevant because, as you'll recall, this value is being referenced inside of our layout. So that's how we're able to modify this view and have it affect our layout. So if we try to run our application, we can see that my movie list is listed instead of index. So we're slowly building up our application based on what we require from it. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to modify our controller in order to pass data that we might need to the view. So to start, we're going to go to our controller, and we're going to return the view instead of these values, and the data itself is going to be the data that we want to modify, that we're going to pass inside of the parameters in our URL components. That is going to be assigned in our view data object. So we're going to do view data, and we're going to say message, and we're going to declare this. We're going to assign a value. We're going to say hello and name. After this, we're going to say view data again, and for num times, we're just going to put, let's just, you know what, for now, let's just put, actually, let's change that to num times again. And we're just going to have that value be passed along. And then let's not forget that we need to return an iAction result. And that looks good. Once we have that in place, we are going to create a template for our welcome page. So we're going to add another view, and we're going to call this welcome. Okay. Here we're going to invoke the dictionary view data, and we're going to put a title. Let's make sure we end that with a semicolon. And then we're going to essentially be creating a list. So we're going to do UL, and then we're able to incorporate programming logic into our page through the use of the @ sign. So we're going to do for int I. We're going to go from 0, and so long as I is less than the number of elements in our dictionary. And we're going to increment, and we're going to create the different list items. So we'll do view data messages, or excuse me, message, and that's going to print out however many times we indicate the message onto our page. So we're going to go ahead and save this. Let's run. We're going to go to Hello World, just as before, but this time we're going to do welcome, and we're going to put our name, Frank, and we're going to say that we want it to repeat 5 times. So you can see that we are able to pass parameters to the page that dynamically affect how the page behaves. The next thing that we're going to do is that we are going to add a model to our page. So here we're going to go models to our models folder, and then we're going to add a new class. So we're going to go item, we're going to go to class, and we're going to call this movies, or excuse me, movie. Okay, so we're going to add the component model data annotations library. So it's going to be using system component model data annotations. Then from here, we're gonna we have the namespace, and then within the MVC movie models namespace, we have the movie class. So we're going to add different elements. We're going to add an ID for the movie. We're going to add a getter and a setter. Next, we're going to add a string that could or could not be null, right? That's why we have this null ambiguous operator. Again, with a getter and a setter. Next, we're going to declare this data type here for date. So that's how we are able to. That's how we're going to reference the date data type, and then we're going to we're going to call this release date. And once again, as a getter and a setter. And once again, we're going to put string with a null potential null operator, since the string might be null. It'll just add some flexibility to our application in case the genre field is empty. And lastly, we're going to include the price, which will be of the decimal data type. Let's do some formatting here, just to make sure that everything is presentable. And from here, now we've just created the movie class, or rather the movie model, for our application. Next, we are going to create the scaffolding that we're going to need for our movie pages. And what this is going to do is that it's going to allow us to perform what are called CRUD operations. CRUD, if you haven't heard it before, is an acronym for create, read, update, and delete. So what we're going to do is we're going to right-click on controllers, then we're going to add, and then we're going to click on new scaffolded item. Okay. After this, we're going to select MVC controller with views using entity framework, and we're going to click add. Then for the model class, we're going to select movie. For the DB context, we're going to call this. We're going to go ahead and add it, and we're going to call this MVC movie data, MVC movie context, and that's just going to add there automatically. And by default, it's going to have us use SQL Server. All of the other elements can be left as default, so we can go ahead and add them. Okay, the issue that we were having is that there was a conflict, or rather an inability of the solution to install the required NuGet package. So in order to resolve that, what we do is we right-click and we go to Manage NuGet Packages. So we'll go there, and here the one thing that you might just see is this package source called Microsoft Visual Studio Offline Packages. So you'll need to add another package source, and to do that, you're going to click the settings button here, and you're going to add this NuGet package source, and the URL for that is going to be https://api.nuget.org/v3/index.json, and I'm gonna put that here just so that you can somewhat see that better. Again, that's https://api.nuget.org/v3/index.json. So once you have that, you'll be able to add the source, and then you'll switch the package source to NuGet. From there, you're going to browse for a specific um, package, and that's going to be Microsoft.visualstudio.web.codegeneration.design. Okay? And once again, just so we have the proper spelling, Microsoft.visualstudio.web.codegeneration.design. So um, you'll click and then you'll install that. Here I already installed it, but you'll go through that process, and once that is done, you'll be prompted several times to proceed and to hit apply. And once you're done, you're going to have this this new controller file, and this is where we are going to be able to build our scaffolding for our CRUD solution. The next thing that we're going to do is that we're going to use part of the ASP.NET Core framework called EF Core to create the database, and specifically this is called EF Core Migrations, which is a set of tools that are going to let us create and update databases. So to bring that about, we're going to go to Tools, then we are going to go to NuGet Package Manager, and then Package Manager Console. We're going to open that, and we're going to type the following command. We're going to type add migration initial create. We're going to hit enter, and this we're going to give this build some time to complete. Now, don't worry about this message. Basically, what's happening is that the decimal price that we had created over in our model, that is that is of the decimal data type, and essentially whenever we store any value, that is going to be stored using 2 decimal places. So if for whatever reason, which shouldn't be the case, you end up storing a value that has more than 2 decimal places, those values are going to be truncated. So, but because that isn't really a concern, we can just ignore this message and move forward. Now, the next command that we're going to enter is the update database command. So we're going to update database and hit enter. Okay, and now that we've run that, we can go ahead and test our application. So we'll go to Hello World. So let's take a step back and explain what it is that the scaffolder actually did. When we ran the scaffolder, it generated the entity framework core model, otherwise known as EF Core, as well as the code to connect our application to our database. So EF Core uses a model that consists of entity classes and a context class. The context itself represents a session with the database, and it exposes sets of entities. So if we go to our context, which is found under data and in our file here called MVC movie context, here is where our context is created. This context represents the session in the database and exposes the entities to it. So you can see that this class is a subclass of this DB context class. So it derives from it, and then it'll create this object DB set that can hold our movie class. or rather instances or sets of our movie class. Another thing that our scaffolder did when we ran it is that it also registered this context that we're looking at here with the built-in dependency injection container, which is found inside of program.cs. So let's look at program.cs, and we're going to see this entry. This string of code here, what it does is that it wires the context to the connection string that the configuration system will then read. The configuration string itself is found in another file called appsettings.json, and you'll see it here where it goes to our local database. It created a database called MVC movie context, and this MD5 string, and then it just included several other properties. Another thing that our scaffolder did was it created something called a migration, and in our case it is called initial create. So we're going to scroll up and we're going to go here to migrations, and we're going to open it up here. And just to explain some of this, migrations, what they do is that they describe how to build or change the database schema. So let's just look through some of the elements here, some of the methods in our migration, and you can see here that we have this up method, and what it does is that this method, the up method, applies the change to our database. Conversely, the down method reverses that change. Okay, so from here we're going to go to our context, our movie context, and actually, excuse me, our movies controller, and we're going to look at this this method here, and this is the controller that uses dependency injection to receive the context. So the constructor here that we've created, we can see that this is the constructor. This will receive our movie context, and then ASP.NET Core will provide it. So every action that is done through CRUD, through our create, read, update, delete operation, that uses this context to query or to save data. So a typical read action would look like this, where it loads a single entity. So let's find the details, this details method. So this would be a typical action, and what this does is that it loads a single entity by its ID, and then it returns the view. So you can see that we're passing this context, and then we're returning it to the view. Okay, so you can see, going back to our model, our MVC model, you can see how the controller is facilitating the transfer of data between the view and the model. And we can actually find the view that corresponds to our to this details controller, or this method inside of our controller, if we go to views, and inside movies, we're going to see details. So you can see here that we we're essentially populating, we're passing this this model object, and here we're populating all of the different elements that our page will eventually show. If we go to the index page, you're going to see this is going to receive the different sequences of movies. So if you go over here to this to the model line, this line reflects that, and then the view iterates over this collection. So if you scroll down here, you can see how we're iterating through the model, and then this the content of the model, it will contain all of the different elements, will contain the properties for our movies, and we also have some of these actions that are shown that allow us to modify the different entries for our movies. Let's take some time to now look at the database that is actually hosting all of the movie data. So what we're going to do, we're going to go to the View menu, and we're going to select SQL Server Object Explorer. So we're going to open that, and we're going to see the various database servers for our project. So we're going to open this. We're going to open the first one, the one titled Microsoft SQL Local DB, and we're going to open databases, and we're going to see the database titled MVC Movie Context. Let's open that, and then under Tables, we are going to see the table for our movies. So we're gonna right-click that, and we're gonna click on View Designer. We're gonna give that a moment to load, and here we can see essentially the schema for our table. So we have the different fields, the ID, which is our primary key, and the different columns inside of our table. We can see here the SQL code that was used to generate this table, which again corresponds with the different properties that we had specified before. Notice that the price, as we had mentioned earlier, only has a decimal position up to 2 decimal places. So all of this is part of the database schema. Now, if we want to view the actual data, we can right-click and we can click on View Data. And so far, as you'll recall, we only have one entry, which is, as we mentioned earlier, the best movie ever, Tenet. And so far, that is the only item that we have listed. So what we're going to do, let's go ahead and close out of our SQL Server Object Explorer. We're going to close out of our data and out of our design view. And what we're going to do is that we are going to create a class inside of our models folder, and we're going to call it seed data. So let's rename that seed data. And what we're going to do is we are going to be implementing the code that is in the this is part 5 of our tutorial. And let's just we'll just plug it in parts, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to include the various libraries that we're going to be needing for our new class. So we have some EF core dependencies. We have library for dependency injection. We're including um, our data model, and we now we're here essentially with our empty class. So from here, we're going to create um, a method called initialize. And by the way, one more thing that you'll want to do is that we're going to define this class as static, meaning that we can invoke the different methods inside this class without needing to initialize it. So from here, what we're going to do is we are going to um, use this using statement, and we're going to set up several conditions for our for the seeding of our data. So we're going to start by checking a condition that it will look for any movie. So if any of the movies is found inside of the context, it'll just end the method. It'll just return and not move forward. Let me just move some of this stuff around just so I realize that it is a little out of frame, but just to kind of put things inside of sort of the scope here. And let's finish that encapsulation, or not encapsulation, the curly brace. And from here, what we're going to do is we're going to add a range of movies. So I'm going to leave that as is for now. And what we're going to do is we're also going to save changes to our context. Okay. So from here, we're gonna do different things. It looks like we're going to be adding 5 new movies, and for this one, I think what I'm going to do, you can see that I'm kind of walking through this one at a time, or one, sort of parts at a time, but that is just sort of for illustration purposes. So it looks like we're going to add 5 movies. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my mouse, my middle, actually not my middle mouse click, because that's not that only works for Visual Studio Code. I'm going to hold down my Alt button on my keyboard, and you can see that I have this sort of this long cursor. And actually, let me do one more. Okay, so I'm going to add a new movie, and we're going to add some elements here to it. And one thing, something that I think I'm going to do is, I'm going to put some commas in here. And essentially, we're going to have all of these different elements inside of my add range. And I think what I'll do is I'll just have it set up like this, and I'll just have it aligned this way. So my entries, they're going to have different properties. So we're gonna have a title. We're gonna have a release date, which is going to be a datetime object, and I'm going to put the date here later. Then we are going to put genre, which is going to be a string, and then we're going to put a price, and let's just put it at 0 for now. Okay, so let's see what's going on here. So we have release date. Let's see. If we go back to our model, so notice I called it release data instead of release date. So what we're going to do, let's go ahead, we're going to fix this because, this is going to, have second and third order effects. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click, then I'm going to rename, and I'm going to go release date. And I'm going to hit enter. And then my program is going to, or Visual Studio is going to go to the different parts of my program where it had release data and change them to release date. Okay, so you can see that that is resolved, and now we're ready to move to put forth the different data that we need for our data seeding. So we're gonna do a few. We're gonna do When Harry Met Sally, very old movie. We're gonna put Ghostbusters, another another old movie, Ghostbusters 2, and we're gonna put Rio Bravo, and let's just put Inception, because that I want to say that's probably the second best movie ever. So we're gonna just move some of these around, just because I like to have these sort of tidy. And let's just we'll just put the data here as per the tutorial. And I think Inception came out in 2010, so let's just say May 1st. Actually, let's do 2010 5/10. Okay, so this was a romantic comedy. These were comedies. This was a western, and this one was a thriller. We're just gonna put, let's make them, let's say they're all, 99 cents, and we're gonna say 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9.99. Okay, so we've created this this class that is going to seed some data onto our system, onto our database, and that's going to be reflected in our records. So now one thing that I'm going to do is, because you saw that I added Inception, Tenet earlier, I am not going to I'm not going to have it end if it finds any movies in the context. So I'm going to comment this out for now, but if for whatever reason you didn't happen to add anything earlier, just like I did, then you can leave that as is. Okay, so from here, what we're going to do, we're going to go to our program .cs file, and what we're going to do is we're going to include our models class. Okay, and then what we're going to do right after we build the application, we're going to we're going to have this using statement, and then where app, we're going to create this scope, and we're gonna create this services object, or for our service provider, and we're going to say services scope service provider, and then we're going to run our seed data. We're going to call our initialize method, and we're going to pass services to it. So from here, what we're going to do is we're going to run this, and let's see if there are any issues. Okay. So it looks like it had some problems with our change. So when we did the rename, it did not. It looks like it didn't affect the database. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my SQL Server Object Explorer, then I'm going to go to Movie, and I'm going to go to my columns, and then from here I'm going to right click and then click Rename, and I'm going to change that to Release Date. I'm going to hit Enter, and I'm going to let this run. Let's generate script. Okay, let's run this. Okay, so it looked like it did the update. Something else that I'm going to do is I'm going to update all of these instances where I wrote release data, and this is one of the issues when you don't check the different names of the elements before you run your scaffolding. So generally I would advise not to do this, but because this string release data is so unique, it's not going to affect anything else on the code. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through every instance where I can find the word release data, and I'm going to replace it with release date. So I'm going to put release date there. I found it here. Found it here again. Once more. And that is it. So if I try to, now that I have that, I've successfully changed all of the erroneous references to release data into release date. So now we can move forward with the rest of the application setup. So let's try this again. Let's close out our SQL Object Explorer, and let's run this one more time. Okay, so we have our movie application. Let's click here, and we can see that all of our movies are listed in our folder, or rather in our database. One thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to come back and I'm going to re-enable this, because if it finds any movies, I don't want it to overwrite them. So, or rather add new ones. So now that we've created this, we can move on to adding controller methods and views, and that's going to correspond to part 6 of our tutorial. So the first thing that we're going to do is that we're going to modify the appearance of our view. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Models, and we're going to open up our movie file, our movie class. So here, what we're going to do is for our release date object, we're gonna specify a different display name. So we're gonna say display name equals release date, and that is going to substitute the header that we saw earlier. So I'm just gonna put some spaces beneath each of these, and then from there, let's the next change that we're going to do is that we're gonna change this, or rather we're going to run this. We're going to do Control F5. So we're back in our application. We're going to go to Movie App, and let's just say that we want to change the date for Rio Bravo. Let's just say that we're going to have this be 1969 for whatever reason. We're going to hit save, and that record was changed successfully. Now, one of the benefits of ASP.NET Core is that we can access a lot of this functionality using our URL. So if we were to make a request, let's say that we go movies, edit, and we go to 1, which is going to correspond to our first entry tenant. That is going to allow us to go directly to the edit page of our movie. So let's see what that looks like behind the scenes. We're going to go back. We're going to go to our movies controller, and we're going to see. We're going to look at our method called edit, and that is what allows us to invoke our page that allows us to delete. So this method corresponds to the get request where we get the page, but you can see that this is overloaded, and this particular method is associated with the post request that sends the updated data from our page onto our controller, and then that updates our database. You can also see that we have other methods for deleting. So if we were to use a tag helper for deleting a particular record, we would be prompted about whether we wish to go ahead with that deletion, and then we have the corresponding deletion action. So let's try that out. So we'll go here to our movie, and let's say that we have, let's go to instead of we're going to go to where Harry met Sally, but instead of edit, we're going to do delete. And here it's going to prompt us, are you sure you want to delete this movie? We're going to click delete, and you can see that that record is no longer in our database. Now, another benefit, and we can see how much our scaffolder does a lot of our heavy lifting for us, is that there are validations in place in case that we enter any data that does not match the schema for our database, or rather for our table. So let's say that I want to add another movie here. I'm going to say Speed, and let's say that I'm not going to put any date. Let's say this is going to be a thriller, and let's just say that I put some nonsense value inside of the price field. Let's just put ABC. You can see that right away the page is warning me that the price field must be a number. So, and also you'll notice that the release date is blank, so let's try to create this anyways just to see what happens. And you'll see that the system warns me that the release date field is also required. So you can see how by first of all, by correctly defining our model, we are able to then create the scaffolding around that model that will allow us to have a functioning application that is able to store a lot of these data elements. The next thing that we're going to do is that we're going to add a search feature to our application, and this is based on part 7 of our tutorial. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our movies controller, and we're going to add a method called index. And I think what I'll do is I'm going to add it. Let's see. I already have here this. I'm going to have it right after this one, so it's going to be an overloaded method, and this is going to be public. It's going to be asynchronous, meaning that the it's gonna run, and then the program is gonna allow it to continue operating and then return the value later on. So if you're familiar with JavaScript, you have asynchronous or async functions or methods, and what they do is that they return something called a promise. So the promise can be instantiated, or it can be acted upon when we use something called an await statement, and we'll see that being invoked here for this particular method. So we're gonna have this be a task. We're gonna have this return or a task with an iAction result object inside of it, and we're gonna have this take a search string. Okay, and from here, obviously, it doesn't like the fact that it's not returning anything with the await statement, but we're going to resolve that here shortly. So the first thing that we're going to do is that if for whatever reason the movie inside of our context is null, then it's just going to report a problem. So if context movie is null, then it's going to return, it's going to raise this exception or this problem, and it's going to say entity set MVC movie context movie is null. Okay, and then assuming the movie object inside of context is populated or it is not null, we are then going to we're going to use a little bit of link, LINQ, in order to retrieve some data from our database. So we're going to say movies equals from M in context movie select M. So M is going to represent each movie inside of this this movie object. Then from here, if the string of search string is not null or empty, then what we're going to do is we're going to say movies. We're essentially going to do a filtering operation where the object inside of movies, so think of S here as the actual movie, and then where S title, and then it's going to send it to upper. So it's essentially going to make the title of the movie uppercase, and then if it contains any substring inside of our search term, then it's going to essentially repopulate. It's going to filter the content of movies to only those elements where the title contains an uppercase version of our search string. And then from here, we're going to return the view, and we're going to, here's where we're going to do the await to list async, and we're going to end that there. So we've created our index method, which is going to allow us to search our movies. Now, keep in mind that we've only defined this this query, and we can use this search string inside of our URL for us to search the whatever object we're looking for. So let's go ahead and run this. We're going to go to our movie app. Let's see. So what happened here is that I had to get rid of this original index method, and basically essentially in doing that, it is just going to return the movies if I don't have a search string, and if I do, then it just it's going to return the filtered version. So let's try that again. And we're going to go to our movie application, and we can see that all of our movies are there. However, if we do a search, let's say that we're going to do search string, and let's just say that we are interested in all of the movies with the word ghost in their name. So we're going to hit enter, and we can see that by using the search string, it filters all of our movies by that term. Now, this might seem a little bit contrived. We might have, we're doing all of this here, so there's actually an easier way for us to implement this search feature. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our index method, but instead of using search string, we're going to replace search string with ID. And from here, we're going to rename this. We're going to say ID, and all of the other elements will stay the same. And let's see. So let's make sure that our program.cs controller route is correct. And yeah, that matches what we expect. And let's try that again. We're gonna go to movie app, and let's try let's say index and then ghost. So that works as intended, and we see that only the movies whose title contains the term ghost are listed on our page. Now, it's not really practical for us or for our users to search only using our this URL, modifying the URL in order for them to find the movie that they're interested in. So what we're going to do is we are going to modify our index view, and we're going to go to views, and under movies we're going to go to index. Okay, so after our create new paragraph here, but before our table, we're going to add a form. We're going to call it ASP. We're going to call it ASP controller, and this is going to say movies, and then the action is going to be on index. Okay, let's close that out. Then from here, we're going to add a label and an input box. So from here, we're going to say label, title, and then we're going to put in our input box here. It's going to hold text, and we're going to call it search string. Okay, and then we're going to put input, type, submit, value, filter. Okay, now as you can see, we're actually relying on the search string term, and what we had done earlier is that we had the search string be replaced with an ID, because we were using the URL for us to search for a movie. So we're going to go back, we're going to put search string again, we're going to put that back, and we're going to go back to our index file, and we're going to add another term, and we're going to have this contain the parameter get. So now that we have set that, we put that in place, let's run this one more time. We'll go to movie app, and let's just look up the movie Ghost, and we can see that our filter works as expected. So keep in mind that this view is connected to our index method, and that it is able to pass the search string parameter to that method by way of this input field. The next thing that we're going to do is that we're going to add a search feature by genre. So what we'll do is we're going to go to our models folder, and we're going to add a class, and we're going to call it movie genre view model.cs. Okay, and for this one we're going to use the Microsoft ASP.NET Core MVC rendering library, as well as the Systems Collections generic library. Okay, we have our namespace, and we have our class. So here we're going to add several constructors here, and or rather properties. So now we're going to add several properties along with their getters and setters. We're going to say this is going to be, now we're going to add several properties. We're going to have a list that contains the movie object, then select list. We're going to have a string, and just keep in mind that these might be null, which is why we put this null conditional operator. So from here, we're going to call this object movies with its own getter and setter, genres, again with a getter and a setter. Then from here, we're going to go back to our index method, or rather inside of our movie controller, and we're gonna modify this somewhat. So we already have our check here to make sure that our movie object exists inside of our context, and then what we're going to do is, so we have our search here for our search string. We're going to add several elements here. So we have our movies link query, but we're going to add a genre query. So let's put string movie genre, and then here we're going to create an iQueryable object with a it's going to have a string, and we're going to call this genre query, and we're going to say let's put this here, and what we're going to do is we're going to say from movies, from M in context movie, order by genre, and then select M genre. Okay, so we have that in place. We already have our search string filter, and then if string, and let's make this lowercase. If string is not null for our movie genre, and we're going to filter it such that the genre is equal to movie genre, and we're also going to we're going to have the movie genre view model. And this is going to be, we're going to have this this encapsulation here, and this is basically, this is essentially going to be a sort of function that we're going to be assigning. So we're going to say genre new select list await genre query distinct to list async. Okay, and then this is and actually this is more of a sort of dictionary. We're going to do movies await movies to list async. Okay, so you can see that we're moving this logic over here, and then we're basically going to be returning this entire movie genre view model from our index method. So from here, we are going to add a search by genre to our index view. So we're going to include model MVC movie models movie genre view model, and then we have our filters here. So we have movies, and we're going to add another selection here. We're going to have a selector. We're going to say select ASP4 movie genre ASP items model genres, and then we're going to say option value. We're going to have that blank, and it's just going to say all. Okay, so let's get rid of this, and that let's see. Then for our table, we're going to modify these so that instead of model.title, because you see we ended up breaking the reference, we're going to say movies, and then we're going to get the first element, and we're just going to put these for all of them, and then we're going to say model.movies exclamation mark, and that should be it. Okay, let's run this. Let's see what happened. So I had a small typo, and I forgot to close out this this conditional statement here in my if block. Okay, what else? Oh, so we need to use this null conditional operator just to once again make sure that if this is null, that it'll proceed gracefully. And I think we're ready to move forward. Let's go to movie app, and we have our different genres. Let's go to comedy, filter, excellent, thriller, western, let's say all, and let's just let's go back to Inception. So we can see that our search and filtering feature by either genre and by title works very well and as expected. The next feature that we're going to add is going to be a new rating field, and that is we're going to be following part 8 of our tutorial. So we're going to go back, and what we're going to do, we're going to go to our movies model, And we're right beneath price, we're going to add a rating a field, or rather property. Okay. So from here, we're going to go ahead and build our application. We're going to do Control-Shift-B. And alternatively, instead of doing Control-Shift-B, we could just go to Build and Build Solution, and that would have the same effect. Now, we added a new field, but we need to update the property binding list. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into our controller, and we're going to update the bind attribute. So let's go, we're going to go to first to create, and over here we're going to add rating. Okay. And we're going to update that there as well. And we also need to update the view templates. So notice that this is something where we're not able to use the scaffolder like we did before. The scaffolder was a sort of first time operation, and if we want to modify it, we have to essentially do it manually. So that is one reason why it pays to have the model defined ahead of time. So we're going to go to Views, and then under Movies, we're going to go to Index, and we're going to add, let's see, over here we're going to add a new one. Let's put it right there, and we're going to call it rating. And then we're also going to add the rating here, and let's go to the create view, and here we can just copy the, let's just copy the title one. Let's just copy for title, and we're just going to call this, we're going to say rating, and we're just going to update those. We're also going to add a rating property for the other templates. So let's go to delete. We're going to go to details. Not details. Rating. We're going to go to edit. We haven't added the we have not added it yet. Okay. We modified it there. And we're also going to go to our seed data. We had that under models, and we're going to add another field right before price, and let's just say rating, and let's just set this R for all. They're all going to be R. Actually, let's just make one PG, PG-13. This one is going to be, well, let's just leave the rest of them as R. Okay. So from here, let's just fix that very briefly. And we also have to update the database. We're going to go to Tools, then NuGet Package Manager, then Package Manager Console. And then from here we're going to say we're going to add migration rating. Okay. Okay, so let's go back to our database and let's just see. Let's just look at our columns. No, it's not there yet, and that's because we need to run our update database. Let's refresh, and we can see that our rating field has been added. Now, the next feature that we're going to be adding is that we're going to be including some validation inside of our application. So before we move forward, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete all of the different entries in our database. And this is fine because, as you'll recall, the seed data class that is going to be called, and if it doesn't find any movies, it's just going to add the ones that we had created. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to add the validation rules. So we're going to start by going to the movie model. So we're going to go over here, and we're going to add a number of criteria for our different fields. So the first thing that we're going to do for our title field is we're going to have it have a length, a maximum length of 60 and a minimum length of 3. Now, you know, if there might be some movie out there with two characters. Actually, let's make it 2 because I know Pi, the movie Pi, is out there, and I know that's a great movie. Definitely don't want to have it be excluded. So from here, we're gonna say that it is required, and for our release field, we have the name, we have the date. That's fine. For the genre, we're going to use something called regular expressions. So this is going to be regular expression, and you're going to see the string, and if it doesn't make sense to you, don't worry. We are going to explain what this means here shortly. Okay. So regular expressions are actually a very useful way for us to do string matching or modify strings in our with any type of data that we might be working on. So the way that you can interpret this is that this caret symbol represents the beginning of the string, and then the $sign represents the end of the string, right? So we're basically saying that these conditions are going to apply to any string from beginning to end. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to require that the first characters, so this is, you know, we have the plus symbol, meaning that it is 1 or more, so the first characters have to be capitalized. Everything after that can be lowercase or uppercase, and it may also have white space characters. This can be spaces, this can be tabs. There's a variety of them, but the point is that these can have any white space as well as any upper or lowercase characters. When you see the star symbol here, this means 0 or more lowercase, uppercase, or white space characters. So overall, what this is doing is that it is saying check the entire string from beginning to end, and then for the first characters, it could be 1 or more, they have to be capitalized, Every character after that could be 0 or more, can be lowercase, uppercase, or it can be a white space. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to have this be required, and then we're going to have this be a string length of 30 characters. Okay, then for the price, this is going to be a range from 1 to 100. This is going to have a data type of currency, and this is going to have this property where it's going to enforce that it can be 18 digits with 2 decimal places. So that is more a constraint on the database, since we already have a range from 1 to 100. So we're going to do column, type name, and this is going to be decimal from 18 digits, 2 decimal places. Okay. So one thing that I forgot to add, we need several libraries. So we're gonna add these. The add data annotations and data annotation schema. That one was repeated, and that solves our issue. And then we're going to modify our rating column, and we're going to put rather a validation constraint. So here we're just gonna let's copy some of these constraints that we already had set up. We're going to have a string length of 5. It's going to be required, and in this case, we're going to have it be. This is going to require a capital that it start with capital letters. However, it can also have either lowercase, uppercase, and digits. So this is going to have 0 to 9. This can have double quotes, single quotes, white spaces, and hyphens. Okay, so we've put that requirement into our model, and let's try to run this just to see how it looks. Put a movie app, and let's just create a new one. Okay, so let's put something here that we know is going to cause some issue. And yes, you can see that it's warning us that these values are not allowed. So it kind of is telling us, for a user, this might be a little incomprehensible, but we'll deal with that later. But here you can see that it is in fact performing a validation on the different fields that we've defined. Now, something else that we want to do is we're going to specify how we want our release date to be, the format, this attribute to be formatted. So what we're going to do is we're going to say we're going to do display format. We're going to say data format string, and we're going to say this is essentially going to be a digit, but it's going to have the following format. So we're going to say apply format in edit mode, and we're going to set that to true. Now, one last thing, notice that we're setting all of these attributes in separate lines. However, we can include them, we can have them be in a single attribute or in a sort of in a single line. And you know, I personally find that having them separate, this is a bit more explicit in terms of the um, the sort of the values, what attributes apply to what values. So I think I'm just going to leave it like that. One thing that I want to do, however, is for the required ones, I want to put that required field on top. And what else? I think for the length, I want to have it be go after, but everything after that, I think it's fine. And we've successfully added validation to our model, and as a consequence, to our page. So let's run this one last time, make sure that everything works as intended. Go to Movie App. Let's say I want to delete When Harry Met Sally, or excuse me, Ghostbusters 1. And let's just say that I'm just going to put some of these values here. It's not going to let me. Okay, that's good. Let's add Tenet back. We're going to have this be, this is going to be PG-13. And this was, I think I'm just going to put May 1st, 2020. For genre, thriller, and let's make it be 1999. So let's see what happens if I put, okay, so the price needs to be between 1 and 100. Okay, so that works as expected. We're going to create, and we can see that Tenet shows where we expect it to. In this next section, we are going to add a logging capability. So the first thing that I want to do, and there's really different ways to do this, is I want to create a helper, sort of a helper class. This is going to be something that I'm going to use for essentially having my logging everywhere else in my program. So what I'm going to do is I went ahead and I created this folder called helpers, and then inside helpers I'm going to add a new item. This is just going to be a class, and I'm going to call it logger. Actually, let's call it logger helper. Okay, so for here, I think so for the namespace, I think I'll just leave it as helpers, and then under class, under logger helper, I'm going to create several methods. So whenever we talk about logging, there's really four major types of events that we'll see when we do any sort of logging. That being any events related just for information purposes. We have warnings, we have debugging events, and then we also have errors, right? So we have information, warning, errors, and then debugging. So I want to follow that pattern here for my logger helper, and for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create four methods. So in here, I'm going to have these be public, and they're going to be static. And I'm also going to have the logger helper be static, because I don't want to implement this class into a particular object. This is just going to be a class that can be accessed from anywhere. So this is going to be void. This is going to we're going to have the void as the return type, and then we're going to call this. So for the first one, we're just going to call this info, Next one is going to be called warn. Next is going to be error. And then the next one is going to be debug. Okay, so here I'm just going to add the parameter list, and here I'm going to say this iLogger, and this is going to be called logger. We're going to have a string, which is going to be called message, and then we're going to have a list of parameters, which is this is what's going to be going inside of our actual logging call. So we're going to say params object. This is going to be an array of objects, and we're just going to call this args. And then from here, I'm going to use this lambda expression. And one thing that I have to do is I'm gonna invoke two libraries. I'm going to use the system library, and then I'm going to use the Microsoft Extensions logging library. So that is what's going to allow me to invoke the different methods that I'm going to be using inside of these helper methods for my logging purposes. Now, the reason why we're using system is because we're going to be using an object called a date time offset, and that is what is going to show us the time. So here what we're going to do is we could do this several ways. We could have curly braces, but here, just because we have it all sort of in a single spot, and we might even like just make these names a little smaller just for compactness. But for now, what we're going to do is we're going to reference logger. Then for these different ones, we're going to use different methods inside of our logger object. So for the info method, we're going to use the logger.log information method. Next, for the warning, we're going to use the log warning. Third, for error, log error. And as you can imagine, for debug, log debug. Okay, so so we need to now add the different arguments inside of our methods. So here what we're gonna do is we're gonna use a sort of a in-string variable, and we're gonna call this time. And then we're gonna put a colon, and then we're gonna put a value for message. Okay. And then so for the first one, so these are going to be separated by commas. So for the second one, it's going to be just message, and then we're going to include the arguments further down, and then we're going to use the date time offset UTC now. So this UTC now is just going to show the Greenwich Mean Time. Okay, so let's see. We have message. Actually, so it looks like I may have to, instead of passing it within the list of arguments for this function, I think I might just need to like concatenate it. So let's do message. I did a typo. So here, message. Okay, let's see if that works. And yes, and that That works as expected. Okay, let's see. And I think we're good. And in fact, actually, you know what? For this one, I think let's go ahead and put the so that we don't have that error. We're just gonna put messages here as a concatenated string. Okay, so here we've created all of our sort of helper methods that we're going to be using. We're going to get the time, then the message, and then if we pass any other arguments, that is going to show up in our list. Now all of this we're doing because we're trying to keep track of whatever happens inside of our movie controller. That is, those are events that are going to be reported. So what we're going to do is we're going to add another object here. We're going to call this underscore logger. So this is going to be a private read-only object. And one thing that we have to do is we have to use the MVC movie helpers class, and then we're going to put iLogger movies controller, and we're going to use logger. Okay. After this, we're going to add an iLogger object, which is just going to be, it's going to hold, or rather it's going to pass the logger that is going to be assigned to this underscore logger. So we're going to say movies controller, and it's going to be called logger. And here we're going to call this, we're going to assign the value underscore logger and then logger. Okay. Now, I went ahead and I went down all of my code, and I went and I added all of the areas where I wanted to do any sort of reporting. And here, we can get rid of this just because we don't need the time, since the time is going to be handled by the logger helper. So we'll go down the line. Just kind of see where else, this might be relevant. That works. Let's look at this warning just to make sure that everything is in order. One thing that we should do is let's make sure that the error handling works as we expect it. So what we can do here is we're going to go back to our helper, right? Because just so that you understand what's happening, as part of the logic for our edit task, if for whatever reason when we try to do an update to our movie and there is an exception that's raised, specifically a concurrency exception whenever we try to update our database, we want a logging event to occur passing that exception. But the issue here, as you can see, is that the error method, as we've defined it, does not accept our exception. So the way that we can handle that is we're going to make a small change here. And what we're going to do is, for the parameters that we're going to pass, we are going to put exception x, and then over here at the very beginning we're going to pass that very exception. So that works. That works as intended. Let's see where else. Yes. So in this case, we have the exception, or rather the error being reported, but we're not passing an actual exception. So what we can do in this case is that we can just create an exception here, and what we'll do is we're just going to say new null reference exception, and that's going to satisfy the requirement that this particular method signature is requiring. Let's see what other, we got a warning here, and for this one I think if we do, no, that's not going to work. I think for this one, for the warning, we should have it so that it might expect a null value. So let's go back, and we're just going to have this be we're going to have these strings have the null conditional operator, because for whatever reason they might be null, and we have to be prepared for that. Okay, so I think that works as expected. Let's see where else for our warning here. I think what I'll do is I might turn this into a null, or excuse me, a string, turn this into string interpolation, and that way I'm not using the sort of the arguments here. And it really shouldn't matter. I could leave it like that. It's just for some reason over here it's just not liking the fact that I'm using a potential null reference, and I have over here I have it as I have the null conditional operator. Oh, and then actually it would make sense for me to not even include that, just because in this situation null or ID will likely be null, so just makes sense for me to omit it. And I'm just kind of looking around, see where else, what else I might need to reconcile. I think I'm good across the board. So let's go ahead and save this, and then we'll do Control F5, and let's go to Movie App, and let's just put this to the side, and I'm gonna have this. I'm gonna have my little debug output here. Let's go to our application, and let's click Edit. Let's see. So you can see that we have our sort of the name of our object, our class, or in this case the movie controller. We have the level of this notice, we have the time, and then we have the message that is relevant to this particular event. So you can see that we've successfully implemented logging in our application through the use of the iLogger library. So this the application works as expected. For part 10, we essentially already covered some of the other methods inside of our movie controller for details and delete, so I'm not going to do that here. And the final step is loading all of our code onto our GitHub repository. So from here, what we're going to do is we're going to create our repo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Git, my Git menu. I'm going to say create Git repository, and I'm going to call this MVC movie. You can see that I already have my GitHub repository connected to my Visual Studio session. So if you don't have that yet, you want to make sure that you have that set up. You'll have the owner, the repository name, and some of these other elements. I'm going to have it be public because I want to be able to share it. And then I'm going to, oh, and one last thing, I want to have my add a rename.md file be checked, because I'm going to be, I'm going to ostensibly be using that later for documenting my, my program. So I'm going to do create and push, and I'm going to let that run. And as that happens, I'm going to make my way to github.com to make sure that that this application did create as we expected. So I can see here that my repository was created successfully, and I loaded everything onto GitHub. So with that said, that concludes the completion of this tutorial. This concludes my lecture. We went over a number of concepts related to ASP.NET Core and ASP.NET Core MVC. We talked about the different characteristics of modern web applications, how we can use ASP.NET Core MVC to create dynamic web applications very easily through the use of Visual Studio. We spoke about why is it that we might prefer traditional MVC pages versus single page applications. And we worked through our first MVC project by implementing a tutorial which was included in this assignment. Please reach out with any questions, comments, or concerns that you might have. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.